Hey everyone, Hazz here. Today we'll be talking about how to fight Mojo. So Mojo can be a pretty tough defender if you don't know what you're doing, and even if you do know what you're doing, sometimes you have to pay attention pretty closely to whatever he's doing to try and avoid some of that degen damage that you can take. So let's move on to his abilities now. So first I'll cover his audience prompts. So prompts are kind of like little missions that he gains throughout the fight, and Mojo or his opponent must complete these prompts for them to be satisfied. Whenever a prompt is satisfied or completed, the anti-life field will trigger. This anti-life field will just reduce all buffs on yourself by 90%. Additionally, whenever a buff is nullified or expires, you're going to be inflicted with degeneration. And this degeneration is pretty strong, especially if Mojo is on defense, so this is something you have to watch out for. Okay, so going back to what triggers the anti-life field here, we've got the prompts. So the possible prompts are things like activating specials, charging a heavy, knocking the opponent down, dashing back, dodging, blocking, stunning, backing them to a corner, idling, stuff like that. Just little tasks that you have to do in a fight can trigger the anti-life field, which can then trigger the degen from buffs and such. So combined with his prompts and his anti-life field, there's two things you've got to watch out for. Firstly, the prompt that he's currently got active, trying not to complete it, and secondly, if he's got his anti-life field active, try not to trigger buffs or let buffs expire. Also, you've got a special attack 2 here. If you get hit by it, it'll just inflict a bunch of degeneration on you. Now, his special 2 is not the hardest to evade, but if you slip up, it can definitely cost you a war match, for example. So now let's look at some examples of how not to fight Mojo. So we're going with Hunter here, standard matchup, not really a very good matchup for him because, Mojo is going to punish lots of buffs. But you can see here he gets his first prompt, charge a heavy attack. So normally you wouldn't want to charge a heavy attack or let Mojo charge a heavy attack, but for this example we're going to charge it. You can see he gets his anti-life field. Now you can see I'm going to trigger a Fury here, but the duration is going to be so small that you almost can't even see it, and then you're going to get degen inflicted on you because it expires. So this is the first problem with Mojo, is that you trigger the anti-life field and then you trigger buffs, and then that just ends to your pretty much doom. So that's really key to know about Mojo, is triggering the anti-life field and then from there not triggering any buffs. If you can either not trigger buffs during the anti-life field or simply not trigger the prompts at all, then that's going to be a big step into you defeating Mojo. So you can see here we got a stunned champion. I'm trying not to stun him or get stunned myself, which is not too difficult. But now we have dash back and we just triggered it by accident. So now we've got the anti-life field on us and our buffs are just getting removed, and then we're getting a bunch of degen. So again, it's crucial that you either stop the anti-life field from triggering or you stop buffs from triggering during the anti-life field, because that's going to make you have a much easier time against Mojo, because then you don't have to worry about all that degen. In addition, we've got the special 2 here. He's going to throw this. You can see it's got a total of 4 beams. It's not as easy as just dex. You kind of have to time it a little bit to get all the dexes in because it's a little bit tight. But here we got dodge a hit, so we're trying not to use dexterity. That's mainly what it means. I'm going to go for a special 2 here to get some space, stun him, lock in a buff so that we don't get as many degenerations on us. Now we've got a whole block. This one's not too hard to not complete unless he's being passive. Do another dex again, and then you see we're not getting punished for the buffs because the anti-life field's not active. Going for a special 1 here, getting another buff. Almost dead from recoil. We're going to then turn the buff permanent. Now I got to stun the champion, and I accidentally stunned him, and now the buffs, they kill us. The degeneration gets us, and that's terrible. So now we're going to look at problem 2. Problem 1 was not triggering prompts, and then not triggering buffs from abilities of champions. Problem 2 is just dex mainly. Problem 2 lies within dexing special 2. So you can see here, or even just dexing at all, while the anti-life field is active, if you accidentally dex, it's okay because the degeneration will only trigger when buffs expire. So make sure that if anti-life field's up and dex is on as well, that you don't make the precision buff expire when the anti-life field is active. So now that we've covered the problems of Mojo, let's cover how you can solve them. So looking at potential counters here, we've got Gladiator Hulk. Mainly because of his face me. Whenever he's inflicted with passive degen or any passive damage, he's going to trigger face me and heal damage dealt. He's going to gain attack rating and a couple of benefits as well, which is really nice. But the main thing is just the healing that he gets. So you can see here, it's always active whenever he gets a degen on him. So there's no specific thing that you need to wait for or something you need to do to activate this. Face Me is just always active whenever you have a passive effect. And that means that he essentially heals just 70% of damage of Mojo's degeneration that he deals to you, which is really nice. But next up, we're looking at Mr. Negative. So Mr. Negative has really two things that make him a really good counter to Mojo. The first thing is that he can remove all buffs just by dashing back. So you don't really want to use heavies when anti-life field is active because the fury duration will be so short that you won't have time to dash back. But with stuff like Dex and other buffs that you gain throughout the fight, even if anti-life field is active, usually you can dash back and remove the buffs before they expire, just with the furies that are really short. In addition, he also has degen resistance for each unique debuff on the opponent. So if you have a few debuffs, it doesn't even matter if you make buffs expire because you're not going to take much degen at all. So he is probably one of the best counters, I would say. I would say he's top 3 arguably. Maybe top 5, it kind of depends on who you like using, but I like him a lot for Mojo. Looking up next, we have Spider-Ham, who is probably, again, top 3, top 5, around that sort of area. And the reason is because he has degen resistance. So he has 15% degen resistance per nonsense. Nonsense is built when the opponent is above a bar of power, and this just reduces degen damage over time. So you can see here we've got, looks like about 6. He's going to throw a special one. We've got 7 now, so we cancel out all degen. We're going in for the combo. We lose the Dex, we get the degen. Again, same thing, get another degen, but it doesn't matter because we are completely resistant to degeneration. No damage at all because we got higher than 7 nonsense. And you can see now you throw the special 2 to get the pause on the timer. More degen coming in, but it's all good because we take no damage from it. So yeah, as you can see, Spider-Ham is a fantastic option for this. Now I'm going to go in here, we've only got 4, but it's okay. We take reduced damage and he dies in the power sting. So Spider-Ham is a really fantastic option for Mojo. So yeah, I really like him for that. Next up here, we got Human Torch. Obviously Human Torch is going to be on this list. He's an absolute beast for Mystic Champions. You can see he's going to get in the Smolders. Even though he doesn't technically have any degen resistance or anything like that, he does trigger Dex like any other champ, but the good thing is that he doesn't have any natural buffs in his kit, so you just watch out for Dex and you'll be fine. Next up here, we've got Magneto. Mojo is metal, so that means you can take advantage of reduced ability accuracy, and as you can see here, we're going to dash back, and the dash back prompt does not complete. That's just because Mojo has reduced ability accuracy from Magneto. So Magneto's an excellent counter. If he has his anti-life field active, for if he manages to complete the prompt, just don't double your paralysis because that has a duration, and then they'll expire. But anything else is totally fine, just as long as you make sure you keep up your paralysis and try not to trigger the anti-life field. Next up here, Red Guardian, probably the safest option along with Spider-Man 2099 because they simply don't trigger buffs. So there's no possible way for Mojo to get degen aside from if you mesh up the special 2 Dex. However, the reason Red Guardian is so good is because of his perfect block. So he can block special 2s in addition to being able to block unblockable attacks as well. So he's probably the number 1 counter, even though he's not the best champion in the game. He's nowhere near. He's still a decent champion, and he's probably the best option for Mojo because again, you can block special 2 even if it's unblockable. He doesn't have any buffs at all, cannot gain buffs, so he doesn't take any degen damage. He's science as well, so you get class advantage. So he's pretty fantastic for it. In addition to Spider-Man 2099, who also cannot gain buffs. The final matchup here, we're going to be taking a look at Kitty Pryde. So why is Kitty Pryde so good for Mojo? She doesn't have any natural resistances. She can gain buffs like any normal champion, so why is she so good? So the main reason is because she takes no damage while phasing. Now, even if you manage to mess up, you Dex a special and then you attack him while he's got his anti-life field active, it actually won't matter because you're phasing, so you're just going to take no damage. As you can see here, we're going in for a hit, we get the degen, but you see we're not really taking any damage from it. That's because we're phasing. Obviously when you're not phasing, you're still going to take damage from it, but you can mitigate quite a large portion of degeneration damage, and if you don't have any other counters, Kitty Pryde can do a really excellent job. But anyway guys, thanks so much for watching. I hope you guys have a great day.